Wow, that's a lot of drama. I usually don't like drama. Anyways, so this is not a screensaver. This is actually part of the presentation. And that's because I would really like to start my presentation this time in a bit of an unorthodox way. So for the next minute, I would like to invite you for a minute of meditation. So I will take place as well. I will sit down and share and participate with you. So for the next 60 seconds, I'm going to time it. I would like all of us to just focus on a breath. Whatever you have in your hands, put it to the side and just inhale through your nose, yeah, and exhale through your mouth. And try to not think of anything but focusing on the breath. And I know it might feel weird, but that's okay, so bear with me. There's a reason for this. So starting from now, just putting away the coffee and let's breathe. All right. If you close your eyes, you can open them. Thank you very much for participating. This is actually an exercise. I've never did it before with so many people. I usually really love to do it with our clients before a retro or before our dailies, and you would be surprised how happy the client is when they don't have to do something for a minute. So why did I do this? My topic is, you've probably read it, Mastering Cross-Organizational Teamwork. And I'm doing this talk because I work in an agency, Futures is one, so we are exposed a lot to clients. I work in Germany, so many of our clients are old school, traditional German corporates with really rigid hierarchical cultures. So in order to actually build great products, you have to have great teamwork first. And I came up with my personal best experiences and tips that I want to give to you guys that you can use in your daily life. So it's sort of a survival guide for you. And I'm really grateful, actually, to be here. And I'm grateful for you guys to listen to me, what I have to say for the next 40 minutes or so. And I appreciate your attention. So I really much like how the conference has started with a singing meditation exercise, and also Josh appreciating how great you all look today. So together with that and the breathing and me thanking you, that's already like 2 or 3 of the main tips I'm going to give you. And I'm also really grateful that we as designers are actually part of this paradigm shift out in the industry, because Josh, you said it, we have to design for uncertainty. Things are not as straightforward as they used to be. That rhymed, cool. Anyways, so the paradigm shift is actually, you've probably all heard the term VUCA. We have a VUCA world. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I had an interesting discussion with my professor. He turned 50 this week. And he used to say, when I told him about this talk, that I'm going to make a talk about mindfulness and well-being at work, he said, "Oh, you millennials, you're all such whiny, delicate flowers. Back in my days, you just used to work your ass off and the client was happy, that's all you had to do. But things are not as straightforward anymore." Because I said, no offense, I think people still are working their asses off in the industry, especially in the creative industry. But still, I'm talking here out of experience. I didn't even hit the age of 30, and I had a burnout. And I don't think that's because of anybody's incompetence, but just because if everything else is uncertain, you have to find the Zen and certainty in you. So you have to build the resilience in order to survive this VUCA and complex environment. So for me, human centricity, as we all are designers, we are human-centric. Human centricity for me does not start with the customer or the end user. For me, it starts with your team and your client, and also with yourself first. So in order to build great products, you have to have first a great team. And I actually found a pretty cool video that shows what the problem is in my view. It's just a minute, so I'm gonna quickly play it to you guys.
Can you like move it up and then down? Oh yeah, all right, and then move it down and then and then move it. Can you?
Big hands of applause for DK, who made this visualization. Quick raise of hands. Who could relate to what was happening in the video so that I see? Yeah, wow, okay, so quite so many. So actually, that's what I want to move away from. So the talk is about how can we move away from working for the client towards working with the client. And so it's very much about how to increase not only well-being, but also job satisfaction in the creative industries. Yes, so what happened here actually, it's when two people communicate, there's emotions happening. And some emotions are good, and some of them are bad. And I don't want to give you tips on how to avoid negative emotion, because I feel that's the wrong approach. Later there's going to be also a talk by Pamela, and she said yesterday in the workshop, really amazingly, emotions are not a problem to be solved, and I agree very much with that. Emotions are there for a reason, and we have to learn to listen to them and to use them as an opportunity to learn and grow from them. So this is an attempt to give you my best practices that helped me through the burnout, through all of the clients yelling at me, crying in front of the bosses, and all those weird situations that I had. So if you want to have any type of hashtags, it's hashtag job satisfaction, mindfulness, cultural change, and team experience in contrast to customer and employee experience. Cultural change because I'm going to skip the whole part about my company, but being an IT software company, they not only ask us for solutions, but also to help the corporates, or themselves in that case, to work the way we do, which requires cultural change. And when working with them, I had to actually learn the hard way, and this is a true picture of me from one of the projects, this is not staged, that many times you face feelings like anxiety, confusion, and stress. And we've had our clients tell us, yeah, we're trying to have a culture like you guys. You're pretty cool. I mean, at Futures, things are like cotton candy land. And I'm like, yeah, it is. So our one client tells us a story. Yeah, and we bought like 3 Nike shoes for everybody in our team. And I'm like, so what kind of problem does that solve? So there's this quote by a psychotherapist, which I really like. 3 yoga classes won't fix mental well-being in the creative industries. It requires a bigger shift in culture and leaders with more emotional intelligence. And I agree very much with that. I mean, in our office, we also have kicker tables, but that's not the reason why the people in our company are happy. The reason people in our company are happy are, for instance, that we have 4 core values that we very much stick to: care, trust, transparency, and continuous improvement. In our company, I can see the salaries of everyone. I get a credit card from day one. I can go to a conference like this without asking my boss. She won't check, it's okay. And we have, most importantly, the happiness cycle, which starts with the employees. Futurist says, if we have happy employees, they do a great job. And that makes the client happy, which then results ultimately in more business and new projects. And new projects, of course, makes my company happy, futurists, which then enables them to offer us goodies that make us happy, such as trainings in mindfulness, or conflict management. We have a communication Jedi training. You can actually become a communication Jedi. And yeah, great stuff like that. So there's a trick on how we try to change the culture in our clients. And the old school approach, which has been tried in the last 60, 70 years, is bottom up, starting with directly with the culture and mindset. So you've probably seen on all the big pages of companies, they have always a vision and always a mission, and the company tells you what to believe in. Of course, it doesn't work that way, right? If I would tell you as a meat lover, you have to be vegan from today on and have to advocate it to all the other people, you will look at me like, I'm not going to do that. Who are you that you tell me such a condescending thing? So how we at Futurists do it is we start with tools. And I'm not going to do marketing for a tool. If you want, you can check it out later. Lean service creation, it's basically you take design thinking, agile development, and lean startup, take away all the job-specific buzzwords and lingo and make it an inclusive tool of canvases that you can use. It's open source, so it's free for everybody who wants to download it, because we believe in improving everybody together and not making necessarily only money out of it. So how we do it is we start with the tools, we go to the client, and we show them how to use them. And here comes the important part, on a daily basis. If there's tools that you never use, they have no value. So by the clients using them daily, they adapt those practices, their ways of working change. And because they use those tools and they're working, they're actually thinking, maybe it is good to show work in progresses and asking for feedback. I think that's the better way. And then they adjust the mindset. Actually, I think last month, I went back to one of our clients and interviewed him again. 2 years later, he said he's still using the tools on his own, which was pretty great and empowering feedback for me. But it doesn't end for us at Futures there. We also try to loop it back. This lean service creation, we're constantly iterating and improving, because it's a circle and it's a closed cycle, right? So you should not do the waterfall model in those things. Anyways, so I was wondering, is it just me that I'm living in this nice bubble of my company and only the clients are that miserable, or like having such a stiff culture? So I tried to do some fact check about stress and job satisfaction in the creative industry, and I have to admit I was a bit shook by the numbers. So 56% of creative industry display mild to severe levels of depression, compared to a national average of 36. That's almost twice as much. Because of this VUCA context, we're almost twice as much likely to face depression. Second numbers, 96% of employees believe that showing empathy is important, yet almost the same number feels empathy is undervalued and underrepresented in companies. So how come we all agree that it's important, yet it's not embedded in our company's practices and cultures? And last but not least, almost every 7th person experiences mental health problems at the workplace. And if I look around, I believe that the number of unreported cases is actually much higher. So there seems to be a big problem. But the question as an employer is actually, well, it's nice that people have problems with their mental health, but is it my responsibility as an employer to take care of it? And spoiler alert, the answer is yes, otherwise I wouldn't be standing here. And as a company, you usually tend to look at numbers, right? So let's look at numbers in terms of additional costs because of bad mental health at work. So, and this is just a study from 2017 from UK, and we're talking here about billions, and I found those dimensions quite shocking. So over 12 billions had to be, there were, well, yeah, I'm going to read it out loud. Employers had additional costs of over 12 billions in sickness absence. Then over 24 billion in additional costs because of reduced productivity. Once those people come back, you cannot expect them to function the same way they functioned before. And then employees had to invest almost an additional 4 billion in restaffing, because people who are stressed out will of course say, I'm not going to do this to myself all my life. I'm going to go somewhere where I get paid better and have less stress. So we're talking here only in the UK about almost 40 billion. This was my 10 minutes research. I don't want to know how the numbers look out in all the different countries. So the main question that I had in the last years for myself was, how can we turn relationships at work that tend to look sometimes like this into something more like this? Cliffhanger. The solution is, there's no single solution. I really tried to come up with a really cool framework for you guys, but the secret is there's no secret recipe for this, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So I think the metaphor that describes teamwork building, client relationship building the best is actually a hiking journey for me personally. And we have to keep in mind that roads were made for journeys, not for destinations. We might have some stones on our way, but the goal is not to remove the stones, it's how to deal with the stones. And I'm going to come to that in a second. Also, I chose the hiking metaphor because, I mean, nature is peace, it makes us feel calm. And this talk is also about how to stay zen and sane when others are not. So I'm going to tell you, like, there's just 4 basic behavioral steps that you have to take in order to make it through this journey. Step 1, and this is, I believe, something that we always skip in projects when we start projects. Understand what are your needs and expectations in a workplace. Be aware. It's okay to have needs. It's okay to say, I have to pick up my kid every day at 4, but be aware that and communicate that in the second step. So once you've made that explicit for yourself, share and align that with your team members. And this should be done, I believe, like at the beginning of each project. So not only when you start a company, so whenever you have a new constellation of people. Third is, of course, practice. So execute the things you've agreed on. Those can be micro habits, it can be rules, it can be appointments, whatever. And the 4th step is to, at some point, after a while, I don't know, after 1 sprint, 1 month, you choose, you sit down and reflect and learn. See which ones of those rules worked, see which ones do you have to tweak in order to increase the happiness or increase the performance. It's up to you. And of course, this is not waterfall, you just can iterate at it any time. But those are the 4 steps. But of course, when you go on a hiking journey, you need to have the right equipment, right? So the right toolkit, the right survival guide, and I'm gonna give you my equipment. Whatever you do with that and however you tweak it, it's up to you. I really much hope that it brings some value to you in your daily work. So there are 3 ingredients to this survival guide, and I'm gonna tackle this very much bottom up, starting with the shoes, which is the self-care. So when you go hiking, the shoes are kind of the most important things you need. I mean, who would go on a hiking journey barefoot? Nobody does that, right? So they are the things that give you stability and security, and that carries you from A to B. So really essential, and without them, nothing goes. So that's the self-care. The second is autonomy, which is basically like a backpack. You have to have the right fit. You have to find the right balance. If it's too heavy and too much, it's a burden. If it's too light, you might not have all the tools you need in order to make it through. And then the recognition, last but not least, I think one of the most underrated ones. It's like water. People think, do I need so much water? Maybe I find a fountain along the way. So yeah, I don't know, just don't take so much. But it's actually the thing that gives you energy and helps you to survive. I mean, you can also think of the water like the cherry on top of some nice ice cream with whipped cream. But if you look at an ice cream with whipped cream and the cherry on top, is the cherry really like a nice extra, nice to have? Or is it actually the only thing packed with nutritions that gives you everything you need? So anyway, let me walk you through the self-care. And the self-care is something you need in order to develop empathetic mindset. The thing that helped me with my clients the most is to try to understand where they're coming from and have empathy, but I cannot have empathy if I cannot take care of myself first. And so the 3 guidelines, and I'm going to explain them really quickly afterwards, are basically breathe, which is already what we did. Breathing, being mindful, hopefully being present, not distracted. Listening to understand, not to reply, and assuming good intentions. And if you have an empathetic mindset, it also actually enables you to become the change you want to see in others, so you basically lead by example. And they say you have to give before you take, but of course you have to have something to give away first. You cannot give if there's nothing to give. So, the first advice that I heard from Anna Durr, she was speaking at the UX Scotland conference in June in Edinburgh. She works for Snook as a UX designer. She said you have to put on your own oxygen mask first before you take care of others. And I believe that to be really true, and I found that to be like a really powerful figurative speech. Second of all, be kind to yourself and make sure it's okay to be not okay, and also to express that to others. And of course, mindfulness, when I was talking at the beginning about communication and how that evokes emotions, that's normal. I don't want to erase negative emotions. We have to learn to embrace them. And Google's Search Inside Your Self-Training, I know there's also other acronyms, they have this catchy framework called SBNR, I don't know, so Siberian North Railroad, which basically tells you whenever there's a strong negative feeling, first stop, breathe, notice, and notice means don't judge, just notice what is going on inside of you, and then reflect on what is going on inside of you and why, and then react. And I actually brought you a picture of my personal journal. Don't read too much. And I followed the article of one of my colleagues, the link is in the bottom, and he wrote an article about how to have a quick structure to have mindfulness in 5 to 10 minutes in the morning. So it's not journaling in the sense of I write long novels about how my week was. I don't have time for this. So it's just like every morning I check in with myself. How am I doing on the emotional level, and how am I doing on the physical level? So I give myself a number in the morning from 1 to 10, a rating, and then also again in the evening, see how my day has evolved. And then also I explain why. So on the left side, I explain the reasons, for instance, the stressors, why I think my rating is not so high. And on the right side, there are the goodies, reasons why I'm so excited. I think the goodies on an emotional level is being on a Amuse conference soon. And on the negative one is, for instance, that I had to travel. Fun fact, actually, I chose for my body the symbol of my legs with my socks. I have an autoimmune disease, which is the reason why I have to wear those sexy socks, which is even more the reason for me to check in with me. How am I doing? Is it okay? Oh, and by the way, the reason I'm showing this is because I also believe, and this is something I'm building up with my clients, showing vulnerability is a strength, and that's the first thing. And second of all, I step aside from my ego, so I don't feel offended if you ask me about my socks or the disease, no problem. Second of all, I want also to quickly refer to a TED Talk by Celeste Heatley, 10 Ways to Have a Better Conversation. And just the most important things that I find that we should all do. First of all, put your ego aside when you are listening. So a really good red flag is premature listening. So again, a raise of hands question. Who of you had or knows the feeling that while somebody's talking, you already think in your head, okay, I'm gonna say this in a second. So, yeah. Okay, that's totally normal, but that's not listening. You don't multitask. You cannot think and listen at the same time. So, and she also has this great advice that forget about all those rules of, when you do active listening, you have to nod and, have bright eyes or whatever. And she says, there is no reason to show that you are paying attention if you are, in fact, paying attention, right? And third one is also, don't answer to a question that has never been asked. So sometimes we tend to tell things just for the sake of telling. Don't do that. But the reason of drifting away is also pretty natural for human beings, and those two numbers are the reason for that. The first number, 225 words, is the number of words we speak per minute on average. The second number, 500, is the number of words our brain is able to process within a minute. So it's only natural that our brain automatically fills up the rest of the capacity, going like, still have to do laundry, still have to go there. So I know it's hard, but it's good to be then mindful and present and go back to that. Yeah, assuming good intentions comes actually from the cult of happiness, and it's a thing that you win either way. So sometimes I was pretty pissed off with my client. I was like, why is she doing this? Does she want to make me angry? And my boss said, assume she wants to make you angry and you get angry, she wins. If you assume good intentions, don't get angry, she loses. And now assume she wants to actually help you and you don't get angry, then you also win. So you have nothing to lose if you just assume good intentions. Also, in a work context, I had to learn it the hard way, don't take it personal. And also cut some slack. I've already said like one story in the beginning. When we are stressed, we tend to show ourselves not from the best side. And believe me, it's also not comfortable for the other people who shows their bad side. So be okay with that, or be kind to them also. Okay, autonomy, healthy habits. Just quickly the ones that help me build like trust and good teamwork through good communication. First one, differentiate between facts, opinions, and assumptions. Those are three different things. I did not know that before. Co-create to cultivate empowerment to make feel included. Talk about what you should do instead of what you shouldn't. And have continuous team building rituals, the fun part. So, sorry, this is going to be a pretty ugly slide. But I wanted to make sure that you all get the story. So this comes actually from one of the communication trainings, nonviolent communication. Nothing new, concept developed in the 1970s, yet highly underapplied in companies. Why? Because, well, I think because it's a theory, and theories are hard to put into practice. So that's why we work with tools that come from practice to use them in practice. Anyways, so it's important to be aware when you are projecting your own thoughts and feelings onto your project and the other person. So, and opinions are always really tricky. So an opinion is usually about being right. There's judgment. So I've heard people say, your design is bad. And then other people says, well, that's your opinion. Nobody asked you. So not the best way. An assumption is an opinion that needs to be validated, so you don't know it. You just throw it out there. So the example here is, you did not work enough, and that's why the design is bad. It's already better because it says the design, not your design, but it's a pretty harsh assumption to just throw it out there. So I'm going to show you like a sentence how you should phrase it, and until you are not at that point, don't use the other two versions I just showed. So you should always say, when giving feedback or saying those things, on the level of facts, because facts are about being true or not, and they're purely non-personal, less prone to conflict. So the sentence could sound like, the design is bad because you did not have access to all the data and materials you needed in order to make it good. See the difference? Right. So, and another advice I really liked is, I don't know if it's a German thing. I'm born and I know I don't look like it, but I'm born and raised in Germany, I promise. That we always talk about don't do this, all those things you are not allowed to do. But what about we talk about the things that we should do? I tell that to my clients sometimes, like, yeah, okay, what's left? Can you give me a good example of a best practice? So it helps to define the rituals or the setting boundaries, things you want to do. For instance, you don't say, no checking emails after this time. Just say, this week I'm going to check my emails until 7. And I'm giving this example because I had a client. He sent me an email at 5 in the morning. I didn't turn my work phone off, and he said, please reply until 9 a.m. in the morning. I had 4 hours to reply, and I don't know what you guys do between 5 and 9. I sleep. So, and I usually go to the office after 9. So that's why it's important to do those boundaries and rules at the beginning of a project, because referring back to our hiking metaphor, it's like a sun protection cream. It can save you a lot of harmful burns. Right. So, have continuous team building rituals. It's something we do a lot in our own company, and we also push to do it a lot together with the client. This is actually our design team in Munich doing sushi together. We didn't die of food poisoning, so we didn't do everything wrong. That's nice. So, but the key point is just spend quality time outside of work hours and outside of workplace to have a context shift in your mind and get to know the people and just have fun together, whatever that means for your team, and be inclusive in that. For one team, it might mean go drinking, although that can also be tricky with the client. For me, it means to go go-karting. And when I worked in automotive projects, most of the people agreed, so that was fun. But also things like business traveling together. Whenever I have user interviews, I ask the client, should we share a car? And while you sit in that car, boy, you hear stories. So that's pretty cool, but it's also important, and this is, for me personally, a no-brainer, but I love to mention it still, celebrate milestones, good and bad ones, and there's like 3 levels to that. So evaluating team performance, celebrating the deliverable itself, and also just celebrating that you just spent time together or worked on a workshop, that you did some knowledge exchange or knowledge creation. Speaking of knowledge creation, the co-creating to cultivate. I mean, you're all designers, so I assume most of you know what co-creating means. For me, it's just this, setting of where you are in one room, don't sit in front of a laptops and have an actual conversation and ask the right questions. It's not necessarily about finding all the solutions, but making sure everybody is aligned, you share tacit knowledge. And I know I didn't want to talk about our lean service creation, but I want to talk about this one canvas because it has saved so much of our nerves and project energy. It's the business objective and context canvas. The direct link for it is down there. You can also find it over the general link. And it's really good for kickoffs. We usually also take it to our clients before we even have a contract. So when we are defining a brief, we ask him, so what is the problem? What do you actually want to find out? And it's really good because it helps to uncover what people want or what's important for them. It helps with scoping of the project. It answers what is the problem and why are you trying to solve it, and is it actually worth solving it? And since it's a canvas, it's on paper and it's on Post-its, the downside is, of course, sustainability, but the plus side is the whole character is rough and dirty, so it lowers the threshold to say out perfect thoughts or perfect ideas, and it's okay to ask questions, and I think you had something similar, right? Asking is better than pretending to know, so I don't know is I agree with that, so ask really why. And I'm gonna come to probably the most easiest, less heavy part, but I feel most undervalued part. It's the recognition and appreciation. And I try to categorize all the sorts of appreciation that I do with my clients and my team, and there's basically 2 levels. You have tangible and intangible sorts of appreciation. Intangible being words and gestures, tangible being things you can either eat or not eat. That's basically how I categorize my whole life. Is it something I can eat or not? So edibles are things like chocolate and cake, of course. I sometimes bake my own gluten-free brownies and bring them to the client. They really much appreciate that. Team merchandise, I don't know who of you can see it. My computer is full of stickers, and I think they're all from my company, without maybe one exception. So we have a lot of swag, as we call it, also t-shirts. And intangible, of course, praising efforts, not outcomes. Ask for input and feedback, and say thank you more often. And I'm going to show you an example of how we do that. So, I asked my colleagues, we have 8 offices, and some of them sent me a picture, to send me a picture of a Jolt station. You might wonder, what is a Jolt? Jolt is a way how we in our company show appreciation and say thank you to our employees or our colleagues. So whenever somebody does something nice, we say, grab a Jolt, and we go to the station. I think there you can see the paper. I, for instance, can say, thank you, Peter, grab a Jolt for helping me with the design review. And then he can go to the station and pick any snack that he wants. Sometimes there's also non-foodie stuff, but yeah. And we make sure to have them on all of our sites, and they look different. So every office has their own character. And it's so ingrained in the way we think that at one point I told to my client, she gave me feedback for my career level. I said, thank you, grab a Jolt. And she's looking at me, what, excuse you? And then I explained it to her, and she was super happy about that. And next time she was in Munich, she grabbed one actually and showed me a picture of how she ate it. Pretty cool. And of course, tangible merchandise, aka swag. Of course, every company has probably their own stickers. I mean, in my company, we have a unicorn for our open source program. Yeah. But they actually help you to focus on the people and the culture and have a team building effect. So what we did in one project is we had customized stickers. That's this one for the people in the back who can't read it. It says designers, developers, and testers united. Because, yeah, when we entered there as designers, the developers and testers didn't really want to give us access to the prototype and found all sorts of excuses to not do it. So again, a quick raise of hands question. Based on your own experience, how long do you guess did it take us to get access to our own designs that were implemented in the company and already running live? And I'm going to give you 4 options: days, weeks, months, and years. So raise of hands, who thinks it took the company, it's a big corporate by the way, days? Okay, you all have to have some experience with that. Weeks? Okay, months? Okay, most of you think months, cool. Years? The people with years were right. It took us 15 months to get access to what we build ourselves. That was pretty painful. But the stickers helped us to keep the mentality high, I guess, at least. So, but usually, when going to the client now, the one that has these stickers, it's already 3 years ago, they still have them on their laptops. They actually gave it to their kids. The kids spread them everywhere. We have other ones, not this sticker. They don't spread this one. But they're pretty happy about that, and it helps them to remind them of the behavior mantra that we're always trying to teach them. So stickers are usually pretty low effort, but big impact way. And last month, the PO of that client, she came to our office to work with us because the project is still ongoing, and she said this to us: I feel more comfortable and effective to work at your office than in my own organization. I mean, that means we're doing at least something right. Not sure if we managed to induce the change there, but it's a slow process. So, but now that she sees how we work, she already said, I'm now able to introduce the practice that we do to our company. So for instance, when we started the project and we would have meetings of 8 hours, we would sit there in those, probably corporate meeting buildings and rooms, gray, no trash bin for whatever reason, and no water or fruits. And I'm like, the meeting is 8 hours long, and of course people got hangry. So we at some point started buying with our own credit card, because the company doesn't ask, to buy fruits and nuts for those meetings. And she noticed the difference. People were not yelling at each other anymore. Somehow the blood sugars were stable. So whenever we go there now, there's food and nuts ready prepared. So this is like one of those small behavioral changes. And I know behavioral change is super hard, so seeing this already made my day completely. Last one, praise efforts, not outcome. I don't know if it's only people like me who are born and raised in Germany. Germans are pretty prone to evaluate results, but you have to learn to reward progress, recognize people for what they're trying to achieve and not for what they have achieved, because that is also motivating them to keep on trying, to not give up on this hiking journey. And actually, this is also how they learn that showing a work in progress is not only okay, but actually really necessary. And this recognizing people for what they're trying to do also refers back to this assuming good intentions. So not criticizing them on what they have not achieved, but seeing them for which way they've already come along. And it's okay to be on this journey and say, we're not there yet, but it's worth to look back and say, but we've come a long way, so that's great progress. So when criticizing, I like to do it in the simple way most designers know it. I wish, which is very appreciative. You start with what is good and what you wish for the future, not what has gone bad in the past. And a really good way, which you might probably not think, for showing recognition and appreciation is asking for input and feedback. Because if you ask a person about their opinion, they feel appreciated. Oh, you're asking for my opinion. Oh, that's nice. Oh, I'd love to give you feedback. So they feel heard, they feel relevant, they feel important. You stroke a little bit their ego. And when you get feedback, make sure to always see it as an opportunity to learn and grow, however harsh that might seem in the first sense. And be aware, as I said earlier, don't take it personal. So whatever they say, assuming good intentions, they mean well. And always remember, this is something I always try to remember myself, learning means stepping outside of your comfort zone, and that never feels nice in that moment, only afterwards. And I want to close the last guideline, I already said it, be thankful, say thank you. This is really a no-brainer, and I really love when Tom went up on stage and started with thanking you guys. So it's not that hard. You can do it always in between. And you might wonder, what was that picture? So in this one project I was talking about all the time, on my last day, I brought a package of Turkish mocha, because my parents are Turkish, and our client, he's from Serbia, and I've noticed whenever we're in his office in Stuttgart, he would always make himself Serbian coffee. So I said, as a thank you for the past, 2 years, I said, here is some finally good coffee. No, just kidding. Good, not good coffee. They're both equally as good, I'm sure. But yeah, I gave him the coffee, and there were like tears of sadness that we leave on both sides. So, and this was a pretty challenging project. It's the one with waiting 50 months for a prototype. It's the one where we asked, can you point us to your users? And they said, what users? And so it was a really challenging environment. And we've come a long way with the culture, we've made some tweaks, and still we ended on that good note, no matter how often our prototypes failed or didn't work. So I left the project, and I think the next year, 3 months later, and this is a real screenshot, blurred also his last name, I get a message from that client, and it's German, but it says, I freshly brewed your coffee. Thank you very much. And this was so random, but it was so awesome that when you thank people and when you give them trust, they usually answer that also with trust and respect. So I did not expect this. It still makes me smile, and I was really sad to leave the people behind, not the project. Anyways, this is my last advice I have for you, and I tried to sum it up into one hands-on canvas. So all the takeaways that you just had are on the left side. The Amuse guys are going to show the slides with you anyway, so you get this whole thing. But feel free to download it directly here or with that link. And I would also love for you guys to not only try it out, but also give me feedback on, has it worked, has it had any impact? So this is basically my personal version of the survival guide canvas for mental well-being. You can define your own journey. And how it's supposed to work is you first go through those points for yourself. What are the habits and rituals that you want to achieve? And then you discuss them with your team or your colleagues. You can also rip it off so they don't see your part, whatever you prefer. But yeah, let me know if that works for you. And you can then keep it, ideally, I don't know, on your desk or whatever, to have it as a constant reminder. I mean, you've probably noticed none of those things are really like groundbreaking innovations, but it's habits that we don't do. because whoever tried to quit smoking or lose weight knows how hard behavioral change is, and we need a constant reminder. So this is my attempt to help you get closer to this, and thank you very much.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you
Welcome.
for your talk and your points. We have so many questions and so little time, but I will dare ask a few. They're all questions by Anonymous. How to handle continuous team building rituals without them feeling forced? And I guess some examples of this might be, I don't know, like the stand-up meeting, or even the meditation you mentioned at the beginning. So how do you kind of keep things fresh and authentic?
Right. So the way the 1-minute breathing exercise works is, it will always feel weird the first time. I probably assume it did for the people here as well. So we ask for the consent of the person, like, is it okay? We try it out once. It's this whole attempt of failing forward and iterating. If it's not okay, we ditch it. We try something else. And you have to have the empathetic mindset, feel the room, feel the people, what you estimate is like still in their comfort zone or not. So yeah, a bit of life experience in that as well, I guess. But it's okay to fail, that's
right.
part of the journey.
What I'm hearing you say is that it doesn't become a regular thing unless everyone agrees that it should go forward. You can try it and see how it works.
And also maybe to add on that, is if you can involve it into something that is already existing. So we have our dailies. It's nothing additional that they have spare extra time for it. So if you can integrate it into something of the process, it helps a lot.
Okay, we've got great advices, Nihan. It says, but what if the problems are not with the client, but your own team leader?
Yes. So I think in my talk, it's meant to be in the way that you can use it interchangeably. Client, team, it's the same. You very first have to take care of yourself, and then your immediate surroundings, which is your team. Sometimes the client is part of the team, sometimes it's not, but you can have like an onion, yourself, your team. Sometimes the client is in it, but sometimes the client is a second onion layer. So work yourself inside out, I would recommend. Yeah. Or switch to futurist. I don't know.
There you go. Thank you, Nihan.
Yeah, thank you.